When it comes to Roblox, I've always tried to be a bit cautious of what I choose to develop because the types of games people enjoy on the platform are always changing. I mean, like, are these even games at this point? But holy crap, you guys enjoyed the last devlog, which is awesome to see because it means that there's people who also want a robot boxing game to play on the platform, so I want to make sure this game is made as carefully as possible with feedback from you guys. I've made some really cool changes to the game in this devlog, including mobile support, which so many of you asked for, which I'll show in a bit. Now, a lot has happened since the first devlog, so let's do a quick speed run of what has gone down. First, we hit 15,000 subscribers. I can't thank you guys enough for that. Second, Circuit Clash now has a Discord server you can join in the description to give suggestions and get updates on the game. Lastly, I have a Patreon now where you can support me and the development of Circuit Clash for $5 and get a sneak peek at development and early access to the game. Whew, okay, that was a lot. But without further ado, let's get into the changes that I've made to Circuit Clash since the last time we talked. First off, so many talented contributors reached out to help develop Circuit Clash, and now we have a great team of contributors ready to help out to make sure the game is as polished as possible, since honestly I don't think I'd be able to develop it all on my own. In the last devlog, I left off by making both jab and cross punch animations, which, still look okay, but I definitely want to do some work on them later. So, first, to start off on this devlog, I needed to work on the most important mechanic of the game, hit detection. I've heard too many game release horror stories where games lose credit just because the hit detection straight up sucked. We're looking at you, X-Defiant. So I needed to make it a priority of mine to make sure that the hit detection was reliable and worked at a fast pace. For this, I decided to use a module called Raycast Hitbox, which uses rays to detect hits. Now, don't worry, it sounds a lot more fancy than it actually is. Usually, hit detection works for two objects by checking if the objects are touching every single frame. Now, this works great for slow-moving objects, but doesn't work too great for fast-moving parts like a 400-pound metal fist of death. When the robots throw fast punches, there's a chance that normal hit detection won't work because of how fast it's moving. So instead, we use rays which draw their position every frame, so we can check if the ray passed through the object to detect a hit. I tested this system out and it worked like a charm. There weren't any moments where I was sure something hit and it wasn't registered, which felt great. I decided to make the important choice of ignoring the bot's lower arms for hit detection because, let's be honest, if I did allow impacts on lower arms, that would be the only part of the bot that ever gets hit. I also added some red circles for testing purposes so I could see which part was being hit. Now, it wouldn't really be a robot boxing game without some really cool impact animations where the bot reacts to every punch. I wasn't really sure how I wanted to go about making this system. I thought I would use physics-based impacts at first like tabs, but I thought it'd be too floppy for a robot boxing game. But it kind of would be pretty funny too. I also thought of using pre-made impact animations for every punch, but I felt like it would take ages to make every single animation by hand. I decided to try using an additive system where I can make a basic impact animation and add it to any animation I'd like to create something entirely new. This is a basic animation feature of every game engine I know, so I had to use it. Oh, Roblox doesn't have additive animations. Roblox, please add additive animation. Even though I was absolutely mortified at the realization that Roblox doesn't have additive animations, there was some hope left. I found a plugin on the dev forums called Animation Tree, which could help me make the animations additively, and honestly, it looked really cool. It doesn't work, at all. Since I was pretty much out of options, I had to go with the pre-made animations approach, where I make an animation for each punch. I started by making a basic head impact animation for the cross, which honestly took a while. I've never really made any animation like this, and it took really long to get an impact that felt believable. I mean, what even is this? Why is he looking right at me after he gets punched like it's my fault? Eventually, I did get something that looked okay, but I'll probably have an animator redo this one. Also, I bet you thought that I was joking when I said there would be a ton of pre-made animations to make. Oh no. In Circuit Clash, I plan to have a feature where if the enemy bot is stunned or isn't moving, the enemy bot won't make an attempt to look in your direction. This means that you'll be able to hit the bot from any angle during this time. This means that I'll need 16 separate animations for each impact direction. Now, you might think, but Reggie, that's not that bad. Just wait, okay? I also have plans to make 3 bot types, light bots, medium bots, and heavy bots. This means that there will be 3 levels of impact weight as well, which means 3 times the amount of impact animations, bringing us to 48 animations needed, which is a crap ton more. Oh, but you thought we were done. No, we're just getting started. I also need to mirror every single one of these animations to make sure that they work properly with the other player, bringing us to a grand total of 96 animations for impacts alone. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit dramatic with the mirroring animations, but 48 is still a lot. But anyways, I managed to get my mind off the absolute amount of animations I needed to create and created a torso impact animation, which also just came out okay. I plan on having this impact slightly move the player back in the ring, so the impact makes more sense. Remember how during my animation rant I mentioned how you'll be able to hit the bot from any angle while the bot is stunned or not moving? Well, it was time for me to implement the math for that, my favorite part of game development. But before I could even work on the math, I realized that if I wanted to have different animations to play based on the direction the bot was hit from, I had to clean and change a lot of code. So I pretty much spent the next 2 days cleaning up the animation code for the bots and making it a lot easier to use. I ran into a lot of pretty silly issues and most were pretty easy to solve until this happened. I couldn't figure out what was causing this silly sliding walk issue for the life of me, and it would happen almost randomly for some reason. If you didn't know, this is pretty much what every game developer goes through when we're making our games. At first, I thought it was the way I was detecting movement from the player, so I changed it, but no result. I thought the animation system was pretty much going haywire, so I made some debugging prints. Still no results. Then I found out that it was a pretty massive mistake I made with the way I was storing player animations, so thankfully I managed to deal with that before anything else happened. Now, back to the direction calculations, I needed to find a way to calculate which direction the player was facing the enemy when throwing a punch. If I threw a punch from the front of the other bot, the calculation should return the proper result. Same thing if I throw a punch from the left, right, or back. I tried a lot of different approaches for this, and I can't lie, it was very frustrating to get working. I kept using different types of math functions, but thankfully I got a system that worked nicely with some very simple code that I didn't think of at first. But now, it's the moment you've all been waiting for, mobile support. In my last devlog, I made the very naive mistake of saying that I would support Circuit Clash on PC and console on launch. Now, if you aren't aware, I'm an original Roblox player and I've been playing the game since 2010 on several different accounts. Now, I know it's been almost 15 years since then, but I really thought that PC was still the most popular platform to play Roblox on, because Roblox was originally meant for PC, right? Apparently not, I was mistaken. Apparently almost 80% of Roblox players are on mobile, which I think is absolutely insane, but I guess it does make sense. So essentially, I have to treat mobile support with a lot of care, since most of my players will probably be mobile players. Thankfully, unlike my last game I worked on in Roblox, which used a custom movement system, Circuit Clash uses the default movement system in Roblox, so I won't need to make a new mobile joystick system. Implementing mobile was actually a walk in the park because of how I wrote the input code. I did have to rewrite some small things, but already having support for both PC and console made adding mobile pretty straightforward. The hardest part of it all was adding the mobile buttons for punches and adding code to handle showing and hiding them based on what input type you're on. I used some placeholder images for the mobile buttons for now, but I'll definitely have a contributor work on this user interface in the future. I want to make sure that mobile gets the treatment it deserves, so if you have any feedback or tips, feel free to join the Discord. Lastly, I made some last-minute changes to the current version of the game to make everything look and work better. The first change is pretty small, but I updated the camera system to dynamically change the field of view. This pretty much gives the camera a really interesting zoom effect that I thought looked pretty nice. I made a small change to the map by creating invisible barriers to prevent the player from climbing on the ropes like this, which causes some weird camera issues. I definitely plan on making a better looking map once the game is more polished. After that, I started working on a pretty big feature that people were asking for, which was destruction effects. I wanted to start off by making some basic sparks, so before I made the effect itself, I wrote a quick script to be able to handle particle effect spawning. This custom system I wrote allows me to spawn a particle effect at any position facing any direction for any amount of time, and I can choose any particle I want to spawn by just giving the name. It's a really useful system, and I'm glad I wrote it since it makes everything 10 times easier. For the sparks effect, I wanted a different level of effect for the light, medium, and heavy impacts. I started with the effect for the medium impact by using Roblox's particle system, which is absolutely lovely by the way, it has so many cool features. And did I mention I used to be an effects artist when the system first came out? I know Danny and his particle system got nothing on Roblox. Anyways, the spark effect came out pretty nice, and even though the effects code didn't work right off the bat, I was able to get it up and running nicely after a bit. This definitely wasn't the only effect I wanted though. I wanted there to be more impact behind the punch. So I made a flash effect that would show at the point of impact, which looked great and definitely helped with the final result. And the final effect I made was actually something really special. I made 3 small metal fragment parts and implemented a function in the effect script to shoot these fragment parts out in any direction I specified. This ended up looking really cool, and it made it look like small metal chips of the bot were flying off. I also made some separate effects for the light punches, but even with all of this in place, something still kind of felt off about the impacts. And I knew exactly what it was: the punch speed. A lot of you mentioned this in the comments of the last video, and honestly I definitely agree. The punches seem too slow right now, and there isn't any footwork either. So I reanimated the cross and the jab animations to be much quicker, and it immediately looks so much better, especially with the added footwork on the cross. As a final change, I quickly animated all of the front light impact animations, as well as the left arm and right arm medium impact animations. With all of this done, the game definitely started to feel a bit more polished, but there is still a lot of work to be done. By the time the next devlog releases, I plan to have all 48 of the impact animations completed and ready to go, even though it'll definitely be a pain. I also plan to add at least 5 new base attacks, with possibly even a cutscene move. And lastly, I really want to get the game working with 2 players, so I can confirm that the game works properly on multiplayer. Once again, you guys can check out my Patreon and Discord server in the description below. Thank you guys so much for all the amazing support. I'm usually Reggie, and I'll see you guys in the next devlog.